committees and in Westminster Hall since this terrible and terrifying conflict began. It's the greatest humanitarian catastrophe since the Second World War, and yet we know very little about it. And sometimes you get reports on the BBC, but I'm afraid the average member of the British public hasn't a clue. When the International Trade Secretary, who unfortunately comes from my constituency originally, Liz Truss, stood up in the House of Commons and said to MPs, I'm very sorry, but in spite of the fact that the High Court ruled that we're not allowed to sell arms to Saudi Arabia, we accidentally sold arms. That is just not good enough. Even 10 years ago, that minister would have had to resign, but no, there's no shame anymore, I'm afraid. And that is disgraceful. What we would do is immediately stop all arms exports to Saudi Arabia. And that's in our And then we would empower Martin Griffiths, who is our, we're the penholders at the UN on this. Martin Griffiths, a British diplomat. We would give him a lot more authority to, metaphorically, forgive the term, bang heads together. Because we cannot stand by and see the mass civilian population, especially the children, being slaughtered and being starved. It defies belief, and it's a stain on all of us. So we've got to do something about Yemen. And I'm disgusted that our government hasn't done anything. I'm really, really angry. And I know that if you asked Emily Thornberry what's our number one issue, the Shadow Foreign Secretary would be Yemen. I mean, there's many, many other precedents. Thank you for the question on the arms trade. We've got a lot of plans that are currently being discussed. Firstly, this arms trade fair is absolutely disgraceful. This country should not be the market, the stall, if you like, for these horrifying and disgusting weapons that are simply there to make as much money as possible by killing as many people as efficiently as possible, and sometimes not so efficiently. I don't think we should have anything to do with it. I personally would want to ban it. That's not our policy at the moment, but I hope to win that. But on in broader terms, look, 6-7 years ago, I got pilloried by the Daily Mail. It's quite a bad one. For saying on live radio, BBC Radio, that in my personal opinion as a Labour MP and a member of the Committee on Arms Export Control, which I was at the time, that whilst we may have a case to manufacture arms for our own defence, we had no business selling them abroad to anybody else. And I was actually pilloried as a loony lefty. Well, great. And unfortunately, my then leader, Ed Miliband, said, that's his own opinion, it's nothing to do with us, it's not official policy. I think that might be different now, Ken. I think it might be different now. Sure. But look, the important thing is that there are a lot of skilled workers who are very worried about their jobs if we take away the arms manufacture or even the nuclear weapons. We are planning a defence diversification agency. It's in very early stages, we're just discussing it at the moment. But the idea would be to deploy those skilled workers, and there's some brilliant people, I've met a lot of them, to jobs which actually help save our planet, help save our environment, and supported life, not death. And I think that would be a brilliant thing to do. And we're going to do that. The final thing is that in the period between, I hope, a ban on arms exports, that's a hope by me personally, and actually delivering that, we have the Committee on Arms Export Control that I would like to see pre-vetting the licences that are given for the export of arms rather than historical investigation. When I was on that committee, we discovered that, this was 2 years after the start of the Syrian war, that precursor chemicals that were used to manufacture sarin gas had been sold to the Syrian government. And that was 2 years after they'd been sold. And when we asked about it, we were told, oh, well, they're components of toothpaste. So we had to ask, why is it that the Syrian government owns companies that make toothpaste? And the same chemicals are used in the manufacture of sarin gas. So we could have stopped that if we'd had pre-vetting. That's my point. 1980, human rights. Human rights removed from legislation. Well, sorry, who asked that? Yes, you did that. Well, of course, I mean, human rights and peace building are going to be at the heart of everything we do. Now, it's a lofty aim, and you know as well as I do. I mean, Robin Cook, the late Robin Cook, our Foreign Secretary in 1997, one of the most brilliant people I've ever known, started his ethical foreign policy. He was pilloried by the media for doing it. He was more or less destroyed for saying that we should have an ethical foreign policy. But I'm sorry, friends, we should have an ethical foreign policy. That would put us on the map as a country that cared about life, about the planet, about human rights, and about peace. Because without peace and with inequality, without peace and with inequality, we cannot expect all human beings to enjoy a good standard of living in security, living and bringing up their families. It's absolutely essential that human rights are universal and indivisible, and we will make sure that happens. And I can guarantee that will be at the centre of our policies. Global warming. The UN is essential. Who asked me that?
Did you?
Sorry, yeah, someone.
Okay.
Yeah, no, gentleman there, sorry. My apologies. You asked about Congo as well. No? Okay, well, let me just deal with global warming for a minute. Look, the UN does need reforming. I mean, this is the greatest crisis affecting all of the human race and all of living creatures on this planet. We can't afford to let that go by. I know there are people who deny that human activity causes global warming and climate change, but they're wrong. The science is very, very clear about it. And we have to ask ourselves, why do we deny it? And then look at their back pockets or even their bank accounts. It is about money and profit. And I'm sorry, we cannot let short-term profit determine the future of our glorious Earth. It's the only one we've got. We have to look after it for ourselves, but for our children and our descendants. And unless we do that, we're going to destroy everything on this Earth. And that's why I'm so opposed to nuclear weapons as well. The Kurds, the Chagos Islands, yes, you mentioned that. Well, thank you for your solidarity with the Kurds.
Oh my God.
Thank you very much for that. Look, you mentioned the Chagos Islands. Yeah. There's one colleague of mine who has been unrelentingly supportive of the cause of the Chagos Islanders, and his name is Jeremy Corbyn.
Yeah,
I rest my case. Okay. The judgment, the Foreign Office has ignored the judgment completely. Well, we won't ignore it, and because I know if Jeremy's Prime Minister, he'll make sure something happens.
Yeah, long let me know what happens.
Yeah, you leave me your card. Now, the gentleman from Congo. I've never been to Congo, but I've had a bit of involvement over the years. Partly because I speak French, and a lot of Congolese who come to my city of Leeds, when they find out that I speak French, they come and ask me for advice. My fellow MPs are not too happy about that. But look, Congo is one of the mineral richest countries on Earth. And so it is appalling to learn that UN-sponsored troops, because I assume they're troops that belong to nation states that are with blue hats under the command of a UN senior officer, are involved in the exploitation for greed, for profit, of the minerals that belong to Congo. The vast majority of Congolese live in dire poverty. I mean, poverty we couldn't even imagine in this country. And yet they're sitting on a land, a vast continent almost, because it's a land, as I believe, bigger than the whole of Western Europe.
It should be the richest country in the world.
Exactly.
Congo.
The wealth of that country belongs to its citizens. And the sooner that it has leaders that believe that and implement that, and the sooner we stop interfering, the better it will be for world peace, but also for the Congolese people. So I hope that happens, and that the UN does not waste money on reports that it then buries.